Right there.
Can you elaborate further on your on Foursquare's involvement with the payment space in general and the Amex deal in particular? The vision for it, how it's been going.
Yeah. There's been a lot of people have been speculating, like, do we get into the payment space? I don't know what happens long term. I kind of see the payments in the app right now as being a little bit like the check into TV. Like, people will solve that. It might not be us that do it, and we'll partner with people as we figure it out. The Amex thing is it's a little bit of an exception because it's not really a payment. What it's doing is it's enabling frictionless, that's a word, frictionless loyalty rewards, right? And so did you guys know what the Amex thing we did at South by Southwest was? So, no, okay. So basically you could take your Amex card and on Amex website, you would tie it to your Foursquare account, the same way you would tie like your Foursquare account to your Twitter account. Like you OAuth the accounts together. And once you're connected, once your Foursquare account is tied to your Amex account, your Foursquare experience is different. You see these specials that normal people wouldn't see. Like, you're an Amex card holder, right? You get specials. And we did a trial with them in Austin. We had 60 different venues, and there were a whole bunch of users that were seeing these specials. And the way it worked is, the way the specials normally work is, I did this at Walgreens the other day. Like, you check in, you get the discount, you show the cashier, and the cashier is like, what? And then she takes out the little book and she flips through. There's friction there. And it's not us. It's like anyone that's ever done this in the history of mobile coupons runs into friction. With the Amex thing, I just say, hey, I want to load this deal to my Amex card. I don't even have to talk to the waitress or the waiter or whatever it is. I just give them my card. Once the card is swiped, it then triggers a discount that gets applied to my credit card. And that's a big deal because it enables merchants to set up these things in mass. Amex can potentially be one of the vehicles that goes out and makes a lot of these calls for us to set a lot of these business relationships up, and you lose a lot of the friction. And that's a fantastic thing for like mom and pop restaurants, which Amex has a great relationship with. And it plays alongside with all the loyalty triggers we talk about with Foursquare. You only get this deal if you've been here 5 times. You only get it if 5 of your friends are checking. You only get it if you're the mayor of this place.
Did you guys come up with that and bring it to Amex, or did they think about it?
We've been thinking about it for a while. Tristan Walker, who does everyone know Tristan here? Tristan's our star biz dev guy. Does everyone know the legend of Tristan Walker?
He's the mayor of everything in Palo Alto.
Yeah, he doesn't actually
on
say,
Foursquare.
Yeah, no, but Tristan has been thinking about what the next generation of loyalty programs look like and how that fits into credit cards and loyalty cards everywhere, like everything from your Amex card to your Gap card to your Victoria's Secret card or whatnot. And so we think of ways that we can just make loyalty programs better across the board. It doesn't matter if it's a Gap card or if it's that that punch 10 holes to get a free coffee. And so those are the problems that we're trying to solve. And I think we've bit off a big chunk and we're managing it pretty well. I don't remember what your question was.
No, you got it.
Okay.
Next question.
What is your take on NFC going forward, and what are your use cases for Foursquare?
Yeah.
The question was about NFC.
Yeah, I'm most excited for I don't know. Like I like the idea of the NFC just being on stuff in physical space. It's like, tap this, I want to remember it. Tap this, I want to come here again. Tap this, make me a reservation for an hour from now. I like what the Bump guys are doing, which is Bump is basically like poor man's NFC. In enabling transfer of contacts or data back and forth. Payments is also kind of interesting. Like, hey, my digital wallet's on my phone. I don't know when it's going to take off. It's awesome that they're built into a lot of Google phones. I think like most things, it might not take off until Apple releases it. But I don't know if they're going to do that with the 5 or whatnot. Oh yeah. You walk into our office and there's a a QR code on the wall. Like, shoot this to check in. There's and then there's also an NFC thing that works with your Nexus S. So we're experimenting with that. We're also we've been trying to hack it together a way if those security cards need to get into your office. We have one of those at our office. It's awesome. But we're trying to figure out a way you swipe that and it automatically checks you into Foursquare. So using this is off topic, but using nerdy API stuff to make those other things work. Sorry.
What was your reaction to Facebook Places, and how do you see your company competing with them as they develop that product?
Sure. No one's ever asked me that question before. I'm just kidding. No, just kidding. No, it's a question that people ask most often, and It's not most often, but it comes up all the time. Because I think last September, a lot of people were ready just to write us off. It's like, Facebook's doing Places, Foursquare, smell you later. And we were like, you know what, I think we're going to weather this one out because what we're doing is so different than what Facebook's doing. Like, Facebook does a little bit of everything. And, I think the average person thinks of it as like, this is where I upload my photos, this is where, I stalk my ex-girlfriend, and maybe this is where I check, this is where I check, like, random, things that I've been invited to. And that's the Facebook experience. Oh, and mail, and mail's a big part of that. And Foursquare's thing is, this is why we're trying to keep it so focused on the real world. It's like, this is the tool that helps you experience, the real world in different ways. Like, you don't use it when the screen is up on your laptop. You don't use it when you're at home. Like, you use it when you're out in the streets doing things in the real world. And to us, it just makes such perfect sense. Like, Facebook owns socializing online, and what we're trying to own is like discovery and exploration offline. And they're just different. And people are like, but they're both social networks. I'm like, yeah, but so what? Like, people are using them for different models. One of the really inspiring things was Twitter went through the same thing. Remember when it's like, Facebook's gonna launch a news feed and status updates? Twitter's toast. And then Twitter's like, no, like, we weathered the storm. And if anything, it made Twitter more focused, and it made people understand what Twitter was best at. And I think we're going through that same thing right now.
Over here?
Recently did that deal with AnyClip to allow people check in and they see movie clips about famous movies where you are. So you see famous clip from famous film based on your location.
Yep.
Is that the first step towards using Foursquare as kind of an access point for entertainment, for local music, local filmmaking? This was shot here, this band is from this area.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to the poor man's augmented reality, right? So, if you start thinking about it as like layers on top of the real world, we have a lot of media partners that have done just that on Foursquare. Like the History Channel, for example. Like, that tip platform that we have where people leave tips about restaurants and bars and stuff. The History Channel is like, we're not going to leave tips about what to eat and drink. We're going to leave tips about, historical moments in history. Like, you check in at the Foursquare office and it tells you, oh, the building next door, the first elevator ever was constructed here. You check in at a random park, it's like, oh, the Battle of such and such happened here. And that's like the History Channel using latitude and longitude as a way to deliver different content. What AnyClip did is the same thing. Like, oh, you're in Katz's Deli in New York and it fires up the movie clip from like When Harry Met Sally. Like, that's cool. That's like a way to experience movies through the lens of Foursquare. We could do that like with famous moments in books. We could do that with the story of different bands, right? And that you can see it as like you should follow Weezer on Foursquare because you learn about the history of Weezer as a band or whatnot. Or you follow Desperate Housewives on Foursquare because as you travel the city, you start to unlock things that happened at certain episodes and maybe unlock deals. And it's not. Different things apply to different people. Like, you think about the things that you follow on Twitter and the different brands that you follow, and you do those for different reasons. And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that happen on Foursquare in the next couple of months.
In the middle?
Yeah, so apparently I'm the guy that you were having up in the poll with. But,
Hello again. What was your name again?
The person, Noah.
Noah. Hello.
So
Noah. Hello.
my question to
Welcome.
you is, obviously the check-in has become a lot of the crux of playing Foursquare. If you couldn't check in the future, let's say hypothetically, God forbid, some company enforced a patent and said you can't do the check-in,
Yep.
how would you get people to play?
Well, like the check-in is, I think, the atomic unit of mobile, the intersection of like mobile, social, and location. It's like, I'm here at this particular moment, right? And that's the whole thing we're trying to do. Like, I don't think that's a realistic scenario. I do see, so I don't know how to answer that question. Like, if suddenly, check-ins were gone, it's like, we would be doing more of the explore stuff and more of the loyalty stuff, but of course, like, the core data would be gone. I do see check-ins as like a spectrum, right? And right now we're doing, well, if you want to go back, like Dodgeball was like the nastiest, dirtiest, sloppiest check-in ever. It was like you send a text message that says, I'm at this place, and a lot of times it's like, I have no idea what that place is because we do crappy string matching. With Foursquare, it's like, hey, we know of a list of places that are nearby. Select from the place, select from the list the place that you're at, and it's a little bit more accurate. There's been a whole bunch of services that have experimented with, we just track where you are all the time, and we're just going to automatically check you in. And I don't think people want that. And I think the model that probably works best is, okay, if you're a new user, you might have to check into a place. If the phone understands that your latitude and longitude corresponds to a latitude and longitude you've been to before or you go to often, then it might buzz in your pocket and say, oh, you're at that coffee shop again. Do you want to check in? Or, oh, you happen to be with 3 friends out for dinner. Do you want to check in? Like that hybrid check-in, I think, is what's going to work really well. And I think that's the thing that, this people ask all the time, like Foursquare is almost at 10 million users now. What's the thing that gets it to 100 million users? And I think a big part of it is like the ease of it, the fact that like right now in order to use it, you have to be thinking about Foursquare when you walk into the bakery in order to have that Foursquare experience. And that's just a broken model. Like the app needs to wake up and be like, hey, you're at a bakery, you want to check in here? Hey, you're at someplace interesting. Like you're doing something fun. Tell me what you're doing. That's I think that's the model that makes it work.
Right there.
Are there any plans for Foursquare to meet up with the travel world at some point? You talk about experience and travel verticals, so interconnected.
Yeah, I think it's actually a great travel product already. A lot of the roots in Foursquare come from like a trip that I made to Scandinavia when I was unemployed after the Google stuff, and I traveled around with like Let's Go Scandinavia, those books. And I was like, this is so stupid. Like, everyone is going to the same places. Like, everyone in the U.S., every college kid goes to the same 5 places that some other college kid said was awesome. Like, that's a bad travel experience. And so it should be like, how do you just crowdsource everything that I know about New York and drop that onto this other city? Or how do I crowdsource, like, what the people that, the people like me in Copenhagen, what are they doing? Where do they hang out? It's like, can you solve that problem with data? And that's, that was a big inspiration for a lot of the stuff that we're doing. We're starting to see, like, the New York Times is getting into it in the same way that this guy over here was talking about, like, how do media companies and bands use it? Like, the New York Times will take, hey, our top 10 restaurants, let's put them into Foursquare, and that's something you just carry around with you all the time. 36 hours in Prague, like, I'm not going to Prague anytime soon, but when I do land in Prague, I want those recommendations pushed to me because the New York Times said they were good. And of that list of things, I want the ones that my friends have done or people like me have done pushed to the top of the list. So I think we think of the product as like, how do you make your neighborhood better, your experience of like your hometown and your world better? But as soon as you build that stuff, it turns out it actually works really well when you take it to some place you've never been to before.
All right, I think we need to wrap up. I have one last question for you, which is, do you have any tips for people to get more out of Foursquare?
To get more out of Foursquare. I think the big tip is like, it works very well with the curated social graph. And like, our whole thing Q1 internally was like every check-in counts. We want to make all the users, like the whole user community, feel as if every time they check in, like they're getting some value or it contributes to something. Even if you don't get a badge, even if you're not going to become the mayor, even if the venue doesn't generate a special or there's no special to unlock, we want people to feel like there's purpose in doing that. And I think we're starting to do that with the Explore stuff. Someone mentioned it before, like every time you check in, the thing gets a little bit smarter about you. Like it contributes more data to the pool that we can then use to help other people find new places.
So check in more.
Check in more. Yeah, it's a little self-serving, but I think that's kind of the truth. So.
All right, well, thank you to Founders Den, to Girls in Tech, to Dennis. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.